exciting to join you here today, and I couldn't agree with you more on Ellen and how much insightful this session was. I think my biggest takeaways is always tie your subject line and call to action to the goal of the newsletter, and I learned so much. So thank you for that. And I'm really excited to be here today. As Baron mentioned, my name is Dareen Gad. I'm a senior technical design architect here at Staffbase. I've been part of this incredible journey for 6 years this month, but my passion for design goes back much further. And this particular bootcamp is very special to me because of the word art in the title. And before diving deep into the world of design, I dedicated years of studying art and visual communication. I hold both Masters of Fine Arts and Masters of Arts in Information Design from Université Laval in Quebec City, where I focused on how people perceive and interact with visual messages. With over 15 years of experience, I've had the privilege of working with more than 100 organizations, helping them transform their internal communication strategies to enhance the employee experience. But at the heart of it all, my work has always been about connecting people, sparking inspiration, and bringing ideas to life. So whether through digital design or traditional art, and since we're talking about art, I thought I'd share something personal with you today. A few of my watercolors painting that I've created. And just like great email design, painting is always about composition, balance, and storytelling. It's about evoking emotions as well and guiding the viewer's eye in a way that feels natural and engaging. So excited to explore all with everyone here and how we can bring the same artistic mindset into email design, where every layout, color, and design elements plays a significant role in capturing viewers' attention and driving action. So let's get started. So in today's agenda, we are going to talk about, we're going to start off by talking about why design matter in the first place, and having the balance between content and design for maximum impact. We are going to talk about a few of my favorite design principles to help with clarity and engagement. And we are going to talk about colors and images and branding to visualize your messages and making it more powerful using those visuals. And we are going to talk about crafting the CTAs that actually gets clicks, aside from what the best practices that Ellen just mentioned. And last but not least, we're going to share some real design layout examples, because I know everyone wants to see, like, okay, show me examples. So there's a dedicated section of different design layouts that we're going to share. And please keep questions coming in the chat. There's a dedicated section at the end. So I will try to address them as much as I can at the end of the session. So for the first portion, why email design matters. As I mentioned earlier, I've worked with over 100 customers, and I have learned a lot about their challenges. When it comes to email communication, it's really, really important that to understand why we have to put this time and effort into designing those messages. The challenge is always we get a lot of emails in our inbox, and you need yours to stand out. So design matters for two main reasons. The first one is for the company, which is drive strategic success. Good design really ensures that the key message about strategic goals, priorities, and initiatives are understood by your employees. It really helps employees align with the company objectives more quickly when messages are clear, organized, and well-structured. And also it engaged employees where your communication they are really guided by this strong design, are more productive, and they feel trusted, and they contribute to achieving business outcomes like innovation, efficiency, and growth. So this is for the organization. The second is it's important because, and it matters because for the employees. A well-designed materials or newsletters makes it simple for employees to find the information they need without frustration or wasted time. It makes their day-to-day work so much easier. Employees better understand how their role connects to the organization, broader mission and goals, fostering sense of purpose. And lastly, it's always boosts engagement because design that speaks to employees' needs and reduces the cognitive overload enhances their overall experience, making them really feel valued and heard. So by investing in thoughtful design, we can create a newsletter that not only informs, but also engage and inspire our teams, driving alignment with our organizational goals. So now let's dive in design principles for clarity and readability. So the first thing that I want to talk about is leveraging the visual appeal. As we discussed, it's really we're gonna dive into each and every element in this design principle section, and we're gonna talk about how these visuals or how these elements really makes a big difference. Starting off by a well-designed and engaging header it's really important as it's the first thing that people see when they open the newsletter. So after reading the beautiful subject line that you've just learned to craft, you're going to open that newsletter and they're going to see that banner. So it's an opportunity to grab their attention and encourage them to really read further. In a world where people receive a large volume of emails and text heavy, a compelling header can make your newsletter really stand out. And it's also a good opportunity to use your brand and to have it really well presented. The newsletter header is often the first visual representation, as we just mentioned. So it really sets the tone for the content that follows and contributes to the overall perception of the organization. So consistent and visually appealing header helps reinforce that brand identity. And also, it really increases that open rates because I know that when I open it in my weekly newsletter and having this engaging, fun banner, it's always an opportunity and it makes it more engaging than just, open that email with just the text right away. So visual hierarchy, this is something that we're going to dive in a lot deeper in a few seconds, but I just want to mention it here because a clear and visually appealing header helps establish that visual hierarchy of the newsletter. It guides the reader's eye, making it easier for them to navigate and understand the structure of the content. It can really contribute to more enjoyable and effective reading experience. And also one thing I want to mention is that consistency. Consistency is in newsletter headers help create a sense of familiarity among employees. I get a lot of questions working with customers about for example, there is an HR newsletter and there is a weekly newsletter and there is IT newsletter. And how can we differentiate each and every one and how we can make the layout really stands out differently? So I always encourage them to use that header for each department really differently. So as an employee or as a user, when I open the newsletter, I don't have to, I would know that this is my HR newsletter right away without even having to start reading. So it's really important to have things consistent, to have your own, I would say, own branding in your own main umbrella to have it really stand out. Content hierarchy. This is something that's in our tool, it's really easier to actually emphasize on a specific pieces versus others because you have the power to make your story or specific story stand out more. And hierarchy is not only in text, but it's also in color, it's in content, it's in many ways you can achieve that hierarchy. But if I have an important news or a top story in my newsletter, feel free to use that full width block and add your full width image to make it stand out more. As a user, when I scan through the newsletter and I see that there is some differentiation between each story, I would automatically know that, oh, this is a top story without even having to read that on the title. It takes the full width, it takes the most space, and again, you can use the less priority information in different block layouts. So you achieve that hierarchy. Negative space. Negative space is, or white space as we sometimes use it, we should use this really, really strategically to create a clean and organized layout. It really helps in reducing the visual clutter and makes it content more readable. I get a lot of questions when customers comes in and say, oh, we have really a long newsletter and we want to we want to fit in, and we don't want people to keep scrolling. So I don't want to use negative space because it's an unused space. Well, this is not how it should be, viewed, because negative space, actually, when you use it strategically, it makes your content well perceived and it makes your content more cleaner, and you provide a better user experience for your audience. So if you can see, this is versus that, and also it brings the content closer together. So it's not only it separates content, but it also, using it strategically, it can bring the content together and it ties in the relevant, all the pieces in one story all together. So it's really important to use negative space when you want to separate content, when you want to make it readable, and also reduce that negative space when you have elements that ties in to each other and they're very relevant. So they would be perceived as a whole for the user. So as a user, I don't have to do more effort to try to connect pieces, because it's really, the negative space did already that role and ties all the pieces together. Hierarchy, as I mentioned, hierarchy earlier in the header. This is how we actually should, the ratio of the text should ideally be. And I've added here some the sizes for reference, so they can even use this reference later on. So organizing elements to guide the readers through the content in a very logical way. And why this matters? Because it helps users quickly identify what's the most important header, starting with headlines, images, and CTAs. And how to apply it is by using large heading to grab attention so that people can scan quickly through the newsletter. And then you would follow this by the subheading and the body text also. So it's really important to make this hierarchy, and it makes a big difference, because sometimes when I review a lot of newsletter, they always like there's no hierarchy where you can see all the text treated the same way. And it's really hard to know where this ends, where this starts, what this section is about. So it's that cognitive effort that you really want to eliminate, so that you, at the end, your reader is really having a good experience. Accessibility. This is, and we're gonna dive in a lot deeper in accessibility, but accessibility is really, really important. And this is some screenshots from our product, just to help you add the color, the hex code for for CTAs or for all your branding for the text, so that when you can share, when your teams are using those drafts or those templates, they are already using a preset colors that are really accessible, and things will remain consistent with all your communication materials. And there's, before I jump into that, there's a lot of way to actually test accessibility. And I really encourage everyone to specifically test these colors with the CTA questions, because sometimes when the CTA text, or there's not enough contrast between colors and between text color and the background, you miss a lot of opportunities of people actually clicking on those CTAs. So I will pause in. I know I've shared too much already, but I want to pause in to see if we have any questions before we jump into the second section, which is using color, images, and branding to threaten your message. We have a question here. Darine, what are your feelings on using sans serif font versus? Oh, I love this question. I love it. I am a big fan of breaking the rules while knowing the rules. So having a contrast is really important. And as I mentioned, contrast is not only in colors, but it could be in fonts as well. So actually, one of the favorite best practice that I apply and lots of people apply to is mixing serif and sans serif font. So I absolutely agree, and I would encourage you, if you have in your branding, and I've seen it a lot in big enterprise companies where they have in their brand a serif and sans serif font, to mix those in your newsletter. However, keep in mind to keep things consistent. So if I am using a serif font for headers, so keep that only in headers, and the serif font in the text, or vice versa. As long as you're keeping things consistent and you are having a strategy behind each font, and also the serif could perceive like as a tone versus the sans serif as a different tone, if you know what I mean, because this is a very, very detailed and design-oriented question, which I absolutely love. So you can assign each font to actually visualize specific content. So that would be 100%. I would 100% recommend that. Just keep things consistent. So we have another question, but I want to just start the second section, which is using colors, and we're gonna come back to those questions later on. So using color, images, and branding to really make your email stand out. I know for a fact that everyone probably in this audience have this lovely document that we all start as a draft, whether it's Word document or a Google Sheet. So we all start from this, this plain document where we have everything outlined, the content, what's the main goal of this newsletter, what's the message, what's the specific actions for everyone, for every section, and we have this draft. So before we actually, after we draft all the content, have this approval and everything, it's really important now that I will have to send it to hundreds of people's. Okay, and it's really important. This is a content that I spend so much time on them, and it's really important. It's coming from executives or different departments, and it has some important call to action. So I really want, or the weekly newsletter that has too many updates, and I really wanted to make it to the audience inbox and also have them take the proper call to action that I want them to do. So this is where it comes to the email newsletter transformation. So we can use this exact content and transform it to the one that I just shared on the right. It's actually, believe it or not, this is the exact same content, the exact same wording. It's just adding those banner that we just talked about, the hierarchy, the content hierarchy, the main call to action, the white space, all of these things that we just talked about, we applied it here, very simple, and it did just a big transformation from this to that. So let us know in the chat, and would you agree that your audience would enjoy that newsletter versus the plain one? Let us know, what do you think of this one, and if it's really a big difference or not. So best practice for colors, because I get a lot of questions about how many colors should I add in my newsletter and whether or not specific colors I should use. And fun story, I worked with a lot of customers who have red in their branding colors. And red is really, really powerful color. And it's really important for the team to integrate red in their communication. But it's also understanding the psychology of colors and how colors evoke emotions. Sometimes it's critical to just, oh, should I use red? Okay, how much should I use it? And it's really important. So it's always very important to understand the psychology of each color, so that I know how much is enough and how much is not enough. Because red can evoke really like a sense of urgency, sense of, alert, sense of importance, but also sense of fun and, attractive. So it's really fun exercise to think about. But yeah, that's really what makes it really important to know the psychology of colors. So using contrasting colors is always key, specifically for CTA, to make them stand out. Follow the brand consistency and adjust the readability and engagement. And always rule of thumb is limit the color palettes 2 to 3 main colors in your newsletter. You don't want it to be cluttered with too many colors. So, and also use them strategically. So if headers is blue, so keep them blue. All the headers is blue. If call to actions are orange, keep them all like this. And pro tip is for CTA buttons, it's red and orange tend to drive the most clickable clicks in newsletter. But again, this is something that has to be really aligned with your branding and accessibility as well. Color psychology, as I just mentioned. As we mentioned, color evoke really emotions. And another way to use colors is also when we have all seasonal, we have the Christmas, and those are marketing materials, because I cannot share internal materials, but those are marketing. And you can see, even though Starbucks is not really a red color background, but it's really using Christmas colors, which are names universal colors, is always nice to break that, break that silence in your employee inbox, make things exciting, because this is not, it doesn't have to be tied with a specific branding. It's called universal colors, and you feel free to use them every now and then to add some spice in your newsletter. This section, creating CTAs that get results. We are going to talk about CTAs now, more specifically about the naming. I think Ellen mentioned a really great tips about the name of that CTA, and thinking about the subject line and making it really goal-oriented, which I love. So adding those, using those tips is really, really important, and using strong verb first phrases like get started, download now, claim your offer. Those are things that is more specific and also action oriented, versus like click more, or click here, or read more, or learn more. So as you get more specific, it's really more, it's more powerful, and make it visually clickable. Making, as you see here, the CTAs really stand out, adding some padding after the text itself to give it more room to stand out, and having enough white space around it so people cannot miss it. Accessibility, as I mentioned, so as you can see here, this is a CTA, and this is another CTA, and you can see here that the text is really more clear, because I've tested the accessibility. I know that this now it's more readable, so people can really click on it without being frustrated that they have to do that extra effort to actually read the text. Okay. This is one of my favorite things, and this is something that we, in our email tool, we actually it's really easy to use, is using different call to action. I reviewed a lot of newsletter where they have lots of buttons in each and every section, which is so overwhelming. You cannot send in your weekly newsletter or monthly newsletter with having like 8 buttons, because as a user, I wouldn't know which one do you want me to click on. You have to make it really obvious. You have to make me take the decision really like it faster, easier. So having this differentiation between each call to action is really important, and we can use design to make this better and to make it easier for our audience. And also another tip is that if you have a main CTA, it's always recommended to have it above the fold so that people won't miss it. So you can reverse colors to make it also, again, clickable. I stand out of the text, out of the paragraph, but it's still noticeable. But it's very clear to me when I see that call to action is the first one is the main one, the second one is the second priority, and the third one is like, click on it if you have extra time. Button settings. One of the things that I love about the Staffbase tool is that we have this just a section for the button settings where you can just play around the padding around it, having a rounded corner, or just playing with the size of the button aside from the text block. So this is just a screenshot to show you that, because it's really, really important. And I know some of the audience says like we want people to I send a lot of communication and they don't get clicked at all the call to action. They don't get clicked. And this is why we have just a section for just button settings where you can play around to make it more attractive. As I promised, we have real examples and key takeaways that I'm really excited to share with you. The first example it's about an event sign up. We get a lot of in our company, basically like in Staffbase, we have like invitations about town halls. We have like Staffbase camp, which happens every year. And I'm pretty sure each and every company have specific events that they want to, send the invite for all their employees. And it could be really, really important. It makes a big difference when you have a specific layout that captures that content really and makes it stand out, where no one can even miss signing up for this event. So this is the purpose of this one, which I'm pretty sure it's similar to all the events, which is like promoting an upcoming event, encouraging people to actually register or attend. And what's great about this layout, it's really clear. It's bold event. You have the title that's really bold. The hierarchy is really applied here. There's enough negative space. It has this nice, beautiful image that's engaging. Okay, it could be a screenshot from a previous town hall where you can add it here. People love to see images in their newsletter. And you add the purpose for this event, add why they should attend this event in the first place, and add a captivating call to action. So this is a quick example about an event title that you can really you can simply lay it out to have the most sign up for this events. Second one is new product launch template. We have new products in every company whether they launch a new product or new policy or new training or anything that that's similar into that. And also again, using that clear and clean layout, it's really makes a big difference and makes it really direct to the audience to actually know what is it about, what do they expect. And it's really clean. Using an image that is relevant is really also important. So this is where I picked the rocket launch, because it's product launch. So I thought it would be fun image to add. So having things really clear, really powerful, and and having this one call to action rather than just lots of call to action It makes it a lot. It creates that good user experience, and makes the job for your audience a lot easier to actually take this decision and to click that button. And the next example, which we have, employee onboarding. For those HR people and the people experience out there, having an employee template is really important, and it could make a big difference for your new hires. So this is an example of how you could lay out the new onboarding employee, and as sending them the essential, content that helps them in, while doing onboarding, understand about their teams, about, get access to the important, tools that they need, learn more about the recent town hall, while keeping things really clear and very less overwhelming. And this is in one full newsletter, but it's really hard to put it all in, so I just break it down. So imagine this is one newsletter that is really having those all elements, and it's not really overwhelming, but it's also have tons of important information. The second example we have is incident or emergency template. So as you can see here, pretty straightforward. You have this design elements on the top for, to promote that, urgency and alert. You have very concise messaging, and then you have one clear call to action. Simplicity is the way to go when you design your layout. Sometimes people tend to add a lot of elements, a lot of visuals, which is not really ideal. You have to add everything strategically, and always think twice before adding any element, and test if you remove it. Would your message be different? Or the newsletter be missing something? If yes, then go ahead and put it back. If no, then no. CEO, I got a lot of questions about what would be a good template for CEO and C-level. So a CEO template is really pretty straightforward, pretty clean. We always recommend having an image of them and the title, and having those really clear and nice, and bullet points. As also to Ellen's point, having these bullet points makes a lot different for people to scan the information. So that's really a good and simplest way to create an executive newsletter layout. And lastly is the weekly or the monthly newsletter, which is my favorite. I get crazy and I get creative when it comes to those, because we receive them all the time. So you really have to break the rules, using different color backgrounds for different sections to make them stand out. If you have an event section, feel free to use the inner color to just make them, stand out. Use rounded corners, use masking like circle images. Really, it's a chance to play around and to get creative and to be artistic in your communication. And I know we have, this is another newsletter example, which is also, again, it has all the different principles that we talked about. And also there is something that I wanted to share, which is like, this is the case study that we have worked with Toyota, and this is the newsletter that they were using. And after working with them, we transformed this content to that content on the right, and it helped them a lot in increasing their engagement and improving a lot of their clicks and open rates. So I really, really would encourage everyone to leverage design to communicate clearly and inspire action and drive meaningful outcome towards your goals. Again, if I will now we can do some questions if we have time. But this is, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any further questions or you want to discuss anything design related. I'm passionate about it, and I would love to get in touch with everyone here. So yeah, that's it.
Doreen, you are an absolute expert in your field. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us all. We do have some questions here that I wanted to take you through. I'm going to do it in the order that they were asked, so we can get to those that asked it earlier. The first one that we had here, Doreen, was, how do you balance creativity and clarity when designing emails for internal communications?
Oh, I love this question. Um, the simpler way to think about it is that assign the creativity in specific elements. So as I mentioned, for example, in the newsletter, the transformation newsletter from the plain text to the one. So I always tend to play or be creative in the banner, which is something that it grabs attention. It's a chance to use the brand company, the brand colors. I can play with the fonts. I can use serif and sans serif together. This is where I can really add and work with my creativity. And it's really less like when it comes to content, you have to be creative, but also in the messaging and the content itself. You want it to be very well perceived. So having the text hierarchy is really applied. And I would say that's about it for when it comes to content. And the rest of the elements, if there's an image, there's a banner, there's a footer, this is when you get really creative. So this is a good way to balance between the creative design elements while keeping your content really accessible and readable for your audience. And I hope this helps.
No, that made a lot of sense to me. I am not a designer, but that worked for me. Another question that we had here was, what design trends are you seeing that are particularly effective for employee newsletters so far in 2025?
Oh, I love this question. So I'm not necessarily following design trends because I studied the science behind design. There is rules that you have to keep in mind, and these rules it doesn't follow a trend. When we perceive a specific content because it's good or bad, or because it's working or not, it's unlike art. So design has to work. So no matter what trend is going on, you have to be mindful of, oh, this is an essential content and it have to be delivered. However, for example, you have to think about being creative and making things user-friendly. So sometimes having a rounded corner, for example, is always nicer. Having a call to action that has, rounded corner rather than just, that block sharp edges, it could enhance, it could be more user-friendly. So I would use those tips and best practices. And those makes a big difference when you send your piece of art to your employee inbox, and making sure that they are user friendly is really what makes it really more powerful, because at the end of the day, they are well perceived by your audience.
I actually really love that answer, where it's just about just a really good answer. You also did bring up something that was brought up in the chat here around the rounded buttons. We had a few of you asking how to do that. I'm not going to ask Doreen here to do a live demo. What I would suggest is you can either reach out to her on LinkedIn through her QR code here, or even to your Staffbase CSM. They might be able to help you and showcase you exactly how to make that work. We did have one more question here, Doreen, that we have time for. What's your take on the cadence of newsletters? Should it be regular regardless of content, or should you only share content when you have it?
That's a great question. Well, there's no specific answer to this, because it always depends on each and every company, and they always have different goals. So I cannot really tell you that send a newsletter every week, no matter how much content you have or not. But if you are seeing that you don't have necessarily enough content to send every week, so don't, and have it instead of sending a weekly newsletter, have them bi-weekly, where you can spread them out really balanced, well balanced, and also you keep your employee engaged, and keeping the sending also consistent. So it's always important. If you're sending on Mondays, so keep them on Mondays. If it's Fridays, keep them Fridays. But it's always depend on how much content you have. You want to really find that balance. And it's really depending on your goal. But if you don't have anything, you shouldn't send any for the sake of it. But I would say like making like understanding about like knowing, for example, doing an audit for your communication and knowing how much content you can send and how can you spread them out, and then strategically think of, oh, is it bi-weekly or is it monthly or it's weekly. So it always depends.